my fridge cycles between no room for anything in it and nothing in it.
And
Hello, Chair. I can confirm that the meeting is now live.
Good, thank you, Simon. So welcome. So it's 3 o'clock. So I'd like to call to order the August 24th meeting of the Heritage Advisory Committee. I'd like to begin with an acknowledgement that the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. So with that being said, we do have quorum, so we should move right into our agenda. The first item before us is the approval of last month's minutes from the July 27th meeting.
I move.
Circulated. Councillor Stoddard moves to accept them as written.
I'll second the motion.
Seconder. All right, so all those in favor of accepting the minutes as written, could I hear an aye?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you all. So that is carried. The next item is the routine approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. And for a change, we actually have an addition this time. Our agenda was circulated, and since then, there's been a request to add another item, and that would be item 10.1, which is a verbal report from the staff, just updating us on the public engagement in regard to the Downtown Halifax Heritage Conservation District Plan draft. So I think to add an item to the agenda, we have to hold a vote. Is that correct, Simon?
Yes, that's correct. And we would need 2/3 majority support. So yeah.
Okay, so all those in favor of adding item 10.1?
If I can just have someone to move the addition, if that's all right first.
Okay, yeah, I didn't realize.
I so move the addition.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone like to second
I
that?
second.
Jennifer, thank you. Anyone opposed to hearing this additional item? Okay, all those in favor, sorry.
Aye.
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 None opposed. Okay, any business arising out of the minutes? I've not been informed of anything. Okay, moving along. Are there any declarations of potential conflicts of interest in regard to today's items? Jennifer, yes?
So I'm in conflict with the university portion of the agenda because I am employed by Jahazi.
Okay, so you'll recuse yourself when we discuss this, I guess. Anyone else with a potential conflict?
I'm also in conflict with that piece because I'm employed by St. Mary's.
Yeah, many of us are. Okay, now that's all right, but that leads me to ask Simon another question. We began with quorum. Do we maintain quorum?
Good question.
Sorry about that. Let me do a quick check with 2 out, 1,
The meeting
1,
had
2,
quorum,
3, 4. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I believe currently we would need one more member, I believe. We might want to take a 5-minute pause to see if there are members who can who will be joining.
Yes,
I should say I didn't receive regrets from anyone tonight. So I do have some confidence that potentially members would be joining us. But I didn't envision that this would happen so fast. Yeah, my suggestion would be, Chair, if you would like, we can take a 5-minute pause and then just see if we return and what we'd like to do.
Okay, that's a possibility. I don't know if this would again require a formal vote, but is it possible to start with the second item on our agenda where there aren't any conflicts of interest at this point? And then
that's maybe another option too. Yeah, if we can go back and just make a quick request to change the order of business, that would be the same vote as before the approval of the order of business, and then we can potentially jump into that earlier item.
so if I could get someone to move, perhaps, that we change the order of business and approach item 10.1 first and 9.1 second. Anyone care to?
I would so move.
Okay, Lois.
Lois.
Second thought.
I'll second it. Patrick, no problem.
And thank you very much. All those in favor of the rearranged agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Okay, so at the moment, there are no conflicts of interest. Well, I should ask again, are there any conflicts of interest in regard to item 10.1? No, sounds good. Okay, so we're going to hear a staff presentation on public engagement, the draft Downtown Heritage Conservation District Plan. So I will turn it over to Heritage staff.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Hasn't put you on the spot too much.
I don't know, but thanks very much.
Actions.
So my name is Seamus McGrail. I'm Senior Heritage Planner with the Heritage Property Program, Planning and Development, HRM. And this item is just to give the Heritage Advisory Committee a quick update on the status of the Downtown Halifax Heritage Conservation District and the planning process. We're currently in the midst of the planning and community engagement process for that heritage district. And thought it would be a good time to update the HAC on where we are in terms of the community engagement. We are scheduling the second public meeting for September 12th. And that's a Monday. Monday, September 12th is going to be an open house format in City Hall. So it'll be in the Halifax Hall and City Hall from 1 p.m. until 7 p.m. So staff, heritage staff will be on hand to welcome the public and anyone interested in the process. We will be making the draft Heritage Conservation District Plan available to the public by the end of this week on our Shape Your City webpage. So there will be an ad going in the Chronicle Herald on Saturday, this Saturday, announcing the open house and providing a link to the webpage where the draft plan can be downloaded and reviewed. We'll be on hand at the open house to answer any questions the public will have. We'll have some posters up. We'll have the other amending documents on hand as well will be available at the for review at the open house itself. It's not available for download just yet. The full body of documents will be available for download later in the fall. But for now, the overarching plan, draft plan, will be available by the end of this week. There will also be notices sent out to over 2,000 households on Friday. So we'll be sending those out on Thursday or Friday of this week. So it's a little postcard just announcing the open house to all, not only property owners within the district, but all households, including people living in apartments, businesses. So it's well over 2,000 notifications being sent out. And this will essentially conclude the the bare bones public participation program with the second meeting, and it will position us to go to committee for adoption in the new year. So we will be holding subsequent meetings with stakeholders after this open house, such as developers or anyone wanting to meet with staff about the particulars of the draft documents. But we will be satisfying sort of that requirement for 2 public meetings. This will be our second public meeting. And of course, the Heritage Advisory Committee is encouraged to attend. It's going to be an open house format, so there's not going to be any presentations. Staff, there'll be like 2 or 3 staff available just to discuss the planning process with you, and the HAC members are encouraged to engage with the public, members of the public in attendance to hear their concerns or support for the documents. So we do encourage the actual public participation program encourages the HAC members to be in attendance. So we certainly encourage any of the HAC members to join us at the open house between 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. on September 12th. If there's any questions or points of clarification, I'm here to answer. Thank you.
Seamus, are we going to get an invitation as HAC members, or was that our invitation?
Certainly, I can follow up with Simon, and Simon, with working through Simon, we can certainly send out an email invitation to all members with all of those particulars that I just identified.
Thank you.
This is Patrick. If I could ask a question. Well, first of all, do you know what day of the week the 12th is?
Yeah, it's a Monday the 12th, and it's going to be in Halifax Hall, which is where we used to hold the HAC meetings.
Yes, I remember. Okay, well, I'll definitely try to show up for as much of that as I can. But I was curious whether the city uses any social media in outreach for a meeting exactly like this, or
Yep.
it's, just the methods you mentioned, and if the city is satisfied with the sort of feedback you get.
No. We will be plugging back into the community engagement strategy that we developed with corporate communications, and we'll be using that same engagement strategy that we used for the first public meeting. So we have a whole slew of social media that we would be plugging into: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and we may even have like a spot on the front page of Halifax.ca for a few days to leading up to the open house, and with links to the Shape Your City page. If you visit the Shape Your City page now, which will be identified in the link we send around and in the ad, there's a lot of information about the plan. We identify the goals, the objectives as well. Certain of the key policy objectives are all listed on the Shape Your City page. Very accessible.
Thank you. Anyone else have any thoughts? Or okay, well, I hope to see some of you on the 12th, and possibly move on to our next item. Thank you, Simon. Or sorry, thank you, Seamus.
And thank you, Chair. I can confirm that we do have quorum for this item.
Yes. All right. So item 9.1, and that is an update for us on potential heritage resources on local university campuses. And once again, we have a presentation on this issue.
Hello again, everybody. I continue to be Seamus McGrail, Heritage Planner with the Heritage Property Program. This is was the first item on your agenda, case 800501, potential heritage resources on university campuses. And I have a PowerPoint that I'll share with you. So please let me know if you can see. Can everyone see this? It's PowerPoint. Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Seamus, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Great. So the origin of this item, of this report that's before you, dates back to May of 2019, when Regional Council requested a staff report to outline approaches and risks to developing an educational institution heritage policy for our educational institutions. The report, as I mentioned, dates back to May, when we had brought forward to HAC and Regional Council a list of heritage buildings in downtown Halifax that were listed on a map in the downtown Halifax secondary municipal planning strategy. They were a list of potential heritage resources that were not registered, and we identified facts that we had lost about 50% of those potential resources that were identified in 2009, when we had brought it forward a decade later in 2019. So there was a review of these potential heritage resources and an evaluation done by HAC on a select few. During that process, when the first batch went to Regional Council, there was a motion made. This motion that was the origin of this report was made in conjunction with the Medjuk building. And it was essentially stated that before council decides on any more registrations of downtown Halifax buildings, in particular the Medjuk building, they would like to see an educational institutional heritage policy. So another report brought forward to assess the approaches and risks to educational institutions. And that's what this report intends to do today. If this, once this report is passed through the process, then we can return to the downtown Halifax process, including the Medjuk building. So during its deliberations in bringing this motion forward, Regional Council expressed concern that the mere ownership of a potential heritage building by an educational institution does not necessarily protect the building from demolition. And they had cited some cases at that time. Universities are expanding their footprint, and in so doing, it places heritage building stock or potential heritage building stock in the surrounding neighborhoods at risk as well. Given this trend, council felt there was an interest in identifying potential heritage buildings on all university campuses for possible registration. They cited Andrew Cobb buildings on the several campuses as particular buildings that they were interested in seeing brought forward. So since this request applies to educational institutions in general, staff did a preliminary review of the educational institutions in operation in the Halifax Regional Municipality. These include the public schools, HRCE and CSAP, private schools as well, the NSCC campuses, the NASCAD campus, and the campuses of the 5 universities. It was determined by staff that HRCE has about a dozen potential heritage buildings from the mid to early 20th century. CSAP maybe has 1 potential heritage buildings, private schools as well, but we have a handful of registered and unregistered potential heritage buildings. NSCC campuses determined to have no potential heritage resources from what we could tell in the Halifax Regional Municipality. NASCAD is operating out of Granville Mall and some other registered heritage properties that are already well protected. And the universities, we did identify many potential heritage resources, and we will discuss that later in this report. And potential heritage resources from the 19th and early 20th centuries. So based on age, abundance, and architectural merit, we decided to focus on the university heritage buildings above and beyond the others in this report. So historic university buildings represent an enduring commitment to education, research, and community. These resources should not be viewed merely as bricks and mortar or outdated systems. They were constructed through the creativity and labor of people that came before us. And we need to recognize the heritage value of these resources. The conservation of these resources can continue to inspire students, alumni, and the community members at large about the important values that they represent. University campuses play a central role in community life. Their prominent locations within neighborhoods offer opportunities for inspiration, education, work, and leisure. The campuses are usually distinct from the fabric of surrounding neighborhoods, but university campuses and their architectural assets contribute to the heritage character of surrounding areas. As universities continue to develop their existing campuses, there is a risk to heritage buildings in surrounding neighborhoods. So we really focus on 2 different types of historic university buildings. The institutional heritage, which is usually masonry buildings, such as the Dalhousie College building you see here, as well as buildings that or added to the university campus through purchasing land around the campuses, such as this property on Edward Street, which is a traditional residential building, which is currently used as an institutional building. And these buildings are generally wooden as opposed to masonry, and a smaller footprint. So as many of you on the Heritage Advisory Committee are aware, the Heritage Property Program operates the Registry of Heritage Property. This involves research into heritage buildings. We have a full-time researcher on staff now. It involves evaluation of heritage buildings, usually using evaluation criteria. It's done by the Heritage Advisory Committee yourselves. There's a hearing for property owners to address regional council for every registration. This provides opportunity for property owners to address regional council if and when properties are approved for registration. Section 17 of the Heritage Property Act applies, and this section requires that any demolition or substantial exterior alteration of heritage buildings receive the approval of regional council. There is a limitation in Section 18 of the Heritage Property Act. If approval from regional council is not granted, the property owner may still carry out the substantial alteration or demolition after 3 years, but not more than 4 years from the date of application. So it's a 1-year window when they can still carry out what they had applied for. If and when a property is registered, notice of registration is sent to the property owner. This is where the particulars of the registration are identified. So in the case of a large campus, we can identify a single building through text on Form A so that the registration doesn't apply to the entire campus. It applies to what is described within the Form A. Form B, notice of registration, is applied after the registration is put through by regional council. This is what protects the property. The Heritage Property Program offers grants that may be of interest to university, and there's also opportunity for public education. Our program does public education, and there's opportunities to collaborate on that with community members, with universities and other institutions. And I'll discuss a bit more about that later. The regional center plan, turning now to an educational institutional heritage policy. The regional center plan, which was adopted in the fall of 2021, recognizes university campuses as integral parts of the urban landscape and regional economy. It applies a designation to university campuses called the institutional employment designation, and identifies 6 objectives for this designation. 3 objectives are identified in the report, and I put 2 of them up here that are most relevant. Support the intensification and orderly growth of major institutions. So university campuses are defined as major institutions, and improve access to these major institutions that support complete communities. Complete communities are one of the 4 main goals of the regional plan itself. The educational institution designation seeks to strengthen existing communities and enhance the elements that make a community complete. So complete communities are essentially communities that support people of all ages, backgrounds, abilities, and incomes to sustainably live, work, shop, learn, and play near one another. They include mixed-use developments that allow safe and convenient access to transit, the goods and services needed in daily lives. There are performance indicators, metrics to address the key performances of complete communities in the regional center, and these include things like affordable housing. They also include a key metric also includes the total number of heritage properties within regional center and within neighborhoods, and their adaptive reuse by development agreement. These are identified as key performance indicators of complete communities. The regional center plan also includes policy CHR 10. This policy states that the municipality may collaborate with community partners and educational institutions to create an inventory and assess potential cultural and heritage resources and consider their protection through registration under the Heritage Property Act. The regional plan, the overarching plan of HRM, also includes a similar policies in CH5. HRM shall consider the retention, preservation, rehabilitation, restoration of those buildings of historic, architectural, or cultural value in both urban and rural areas and encourage their continued use. So the municipality's educational institutional heritage policy is established within the regional center plan adopted in 2021. It seeks to encourage the intensification and orderly growth of educational institutions while protecting heritage properties that support complete communities. There's a perceived risk that heritage registration will limit potential for intensification and growth of educational institutions. However, there are processes, as many of you in the Heritage Advisory Committee know very well, under the Heritage Property Act and land use bylaw incentives under the Regional Center Plan that allow for the alteration, rehabilitation, and adaptive reuse of registered heritage properties. The recently adopted Regional Center land use bylaw increased development capacity for all university campuses through new zoning. So when this was passed in 2021, all five or all four university campuses within the regional center were essentially upzoned with height provisions like 17 meters on Carleton campus, 28 meters in other campuses, and 17 meters. So these campuses were all essentially upzoned to the regional center plan. This new development capacity places heritage resources at greater risk of redevelopment. As such, there's a pressing need to identify and protect heritage resources on these university campuses, which could encourage their integration into these larger developments. If these heritage resources are registered, policy CHR7 of the new regional center plan allows any change in use or proposed development of a registered heritage property not otherwise permitted under the land use bylaw through the development agreement process. So the municipality can work collaboratively with universities through this development agreement policy and the substantial alteration processes under the Heritage Property Act if necessary to provide for the intensification and orderly growth of campuses that encourage the conservation and rehabilitation of heritage properties through adaptive reuse. As mentioned, we also have a financial incentives program. This municipality administers a program that supports the conservation of heritage properties under private ownership in residential or commercial use. So if universities as private entities have any properties, any buildings in residential or commercial use, they may apply for these grants, either $15,000 or $25,000 in any 2-year period. The municipality can also work in collaboration with educational institutions to develop interpretive programs and educational programs that will support the installation of interpretive signage, for example, or online content that may align with the educational objectives of these universities. The municipality recently launched a similar online app for downtown Halifax Heritage Conservation District, where you can plug in and learn about the different properties in downtown Halifax. So something similar could be done with university buildings. If you turn to attachment A of the report, there are little brief narratives describing the evolution of the different campuses. These narratives can go into educational programming in collaboration with these educational institutions. So in terms of an approach to the heritage policy, staff have identified 42 potential heritage resources dating from the late 19th century and first half of the 20th century, located on properties that are part of university campuses within the Halifax Peninsula. These include Dalhousie University's Carleton, Studley, and Sexton campuses, King's College's Andrew Cobb buildings, AST's original college and library buildings, and the St. Mary's University's McNally building. These are attachments A and B of the staff report. The majority of the potential heritage buildings are identified in this report. 35 in total are located on Dalhousie University's campuses, with only 7 located on the other campuses. Municipal staff did meet with Dalhousie University staff on 2 separate occasions. Dalhousie staff discussed their campus planning process that will begin this year in 2022. They suggested that municipality work collaboratively with them through this planning process. The conservation in the new master plan of the campuses. They do maintain that Dalhousie is actively maintaining the public value of their campus buildings without heritage registration. And they requested that no Dalhousie building proceed to municipal heritage evaluation. Staff, we also met with, we sent out letters to St. Mary's University, AST, and King's College. We met with both representatives of King's College and AST. They were both receptive and generally supportive of the idea of registering their more significant buildings. They did. The King's College staff did express concern about how some aspects of colonialist history would be commemorated in the registrations, and how accessibility and energy efficiency standards could be met through heritage conservations. So there was a strong desire for the university faculty and staff to be part of the registration process. Staff did mention the forthcoming Culture and Heritage Priorities Plan, which will focus on delivering inclusive programs to address concerns raised by universities about physical accessibility, energy efficiency, and inclusive representation and heritage. Staff did not hear from St. Mary's University until this spring, and we are planning to meet to address their concerns soon. However, the most significant historic buildings on St. Mary's University campuses are already registered. University staff members participated in the recent regional center planning process, which resulted in increased overall development capacity on all 6 university campuses. The regional center SMPS adopted in the fall of 2021 encourages the continued expansion of universities through enhanced zoning. As such, municipal staff will request an opportunity to participate in the Dalhousie's campus planning process in a similar manner by requesting information, providing comments, and making suggestions. Attachment B of the staff report contains buildings that should be researched and evaluated and considered by regional council as registered municipal heritage properties in tandem with Dalhousie University's campus planning process. So we do recommend that the properties identified in attachment A, those 25 potential heritage buildings, as being of exceptional significance based on architectural merit, heritage value, and setting in the community. The staff will give priority to these buildings and provide recommendations for the evaluation of these buildings to the Heritage Advisory Committee as time and resources allow. For all of the other buildings in attachment B, staff will discuss these buildings through the campus planning process, and they can be considered in the timing of the evaluations with the university stakeholders. So we see attachment B as being kind of the working collection of heritage buildings that can be addressed through the campus planning process, whereas attachment A really are the key heritage buildings that really should be protected. And that's why we're asking for the recommendation that will be brought forward to you later. So of these 42 potential heritage resources on the 6 university campuses, only 4 are registered. That is a total of 9% protected. Municipal staff did conduct a jurisdictional scan to benchmark the protection of heritage buildings on 9 other historic university campuses across Canada, and determined that most of these universities include some form of provincial or municipal legal protection of heritage buildings on their campuses. McGill University, Laval, Toronto, Ottawa, and Queen's University protect between 74 and 99% of historic building stock. Universities of Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and New Brunswick protect a limited but exceptional selection of the heritage building stock. And UBC was the only university without any protection of its, any formal protection of its historic buildings. So based on this analysis, the 4 universities in the regional center of Halifax own far fewer legally protected heritage buildings when compared to most other historic universities across the country. And if the 24 potential heritage buildings identified in attachment A are registered, that number will increase from 4 to 28 protected, or 61% protected of the total 46. So it'll bring university campuses in the regional center just under Queen's University in terms of percent protected. And as many of you in HAC are aware, there have been some third-party applications made by community members and properties surrounding the university that have been purchased by the university. And staff are currently processing these third-party registration applications. These include, and these properties were not listed on attachment A or B because these separate applications were made and they're being dealt with through a separate process than this one. These include 1245 Edward Street. That property was brought forward to HAC a few months ago. And it's en route to consideration by Regional Council in September. 1460 Oxford Street. This is the President's Mansion. 1322 Roby Street as well. And these two, 1460 Oxford and 1322 Roby Street, will be proceeding for evaluation by the HAC in the coming months. So just to conclude, the recommendation is before the Heritage Advisory Committee now. I'll just conclude saying the municipality's educational institutional heritage policy is already established in the complete communities, institutional employment, and cultural heritage policies of the Regional Center Plan, which was adopted after this request, after the origin of this report was made, and in the cultural heritage policies of the regional plan as well. The municipality seeks to encourage the intensification and orderly growth of university campuses and has done so through upzoning of the campuses while protecting heritage properties that support complete communities. Heritage building protection and the adaptive reuse of these buildings are key performance indicators of the complete communities surrounding these campuses. Historic university buildings represent an enduring commitment to education, research, and community. The majority of the 9 historic universities in Canada that were reviewed by staff include legal protection for most of their heritage building stock under provincial legislation. The mere ownership of a potential heritage building by an educational institution does not necessarily protect the building from demolition. Planning for the conservation of heritage resources can serve to protect and strengthen their sense of place while enabling necessary change and growth of the educational facility. Municipal staff, if invited, will participate in Dalhousie's upcoming campus planning process to ensure that important heritage resources are considered in this process. Staff recommend that potential heritage resources listed in attachment A be researched, evaluated, and considered for heritage registration as time and resources allow, beginning with the most significant or at-risk historic buildings located on the various campuses. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This concludes the staff presentation.
All right, thank you very much. Excellent presentation. So there is a recommendation on the table that we ask city staff to initiate discussions on these properties. Is there anyone who has any questions or any further clarification that might be useful? Now would be the time to speak out. Anyone have any thoughts? A couple of issues occurred to me as I was going through this. I wonder if I might ask staff for, again, a clarification. Are any of the buildings, in particular the ones on on attachment A or as appendix A, the institutional buildings. Are any of them protected by provincial or federal legislation? I was shocked when I found out that some of these buildings weren't already registered.
No, not to our knowledge.
I was also wondering, I know you can't give us a proper timeline, that would be too much to ask, but were any of these, again, I'm thinking particularly in this case of the residential buildings that are on attachment B, have any of them been previously researched by city staff, perhaps as part of the larger inventory you carried out in 2019? Like, are some of these sort of half done already, or are we starting from scratch? Is, I guess what I'm curious about.
Thanks for the question, Mr. Chair. The Magic building is already researched, and we have a research report ready for that one. That will be brought forward through the process that was underway in 2019. After this report is processed, we'll continue with the registration of the Magic building, so that one is all complete. For all of the other buildings, we will need to conduct research for all of those buildings. We did find all of the information that was in attachment A was sourced from the Dalhousie archives. So the Dalhousie archives does include information about its heritage buildings. We also found information about the other heritage buildings on the other campuses through online sources, but no formal research reports have been put together for any of these buildings other than the Medjuk building.
I was also curious, and this might be a far out suggestion, but is an entire heritage district a worthwhile idea, or is that just sort of too wide ranging? Dalhousie and St. Mary's in particular are quite compact. So.
Thanks for the question, Mr. Chair. That is identified as one of the alternatives in the report. If you turn to the alternatives section of the report, I believe it's identified as alternative number 4, which could be considered. Staff did not recommend this approach just based on the location of the buildings. Like the campuses are very spread apart. We do feel that the protection of the individual buildings are what's important here, and not really creating a district with programs like streetscaping or financial incentives or anything like that. We're not looking at taking a comprehensive approach like we would in a heritage conservation district. We're simply looking at protecting important heritage buildings and allowing the campuses and universities the opportunity to grow on the portions of the campus which are not identified as heritage buildings.
That does seem like a more gentle approach. Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any thoughts about this? It's quite a list of properties here. And,
I'm sorry, are you speaking to me?
no, I'm perhaps looking at you, but no, I'm speaking to all.
Okay, because I have my hand up.
Oh, I didn't see that. Please.
That's why I thought you were talking to me. No.
Okay, no, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you for the presentation, Seamus. Seamus. I'm just wondering, you know how when we do, we try to register homes for the heritage, just wondering, like, there's times when the owner may not be willing to have the house registered. So in this case, where we're talking about universities, is that likely to happen? And we decide, well, it's going to be registered anyway, kind of thing?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks for the question, and through the chair. There is an opportunity, as mentioned, for the property owners, the representatives of the university, to speak to council directly before it makes any decision on heritage registration. They can certainly speak against or in support of the heritage registrations. The feedback we're hearing so far from the universities is Dalhousie would prefer to preserve its own heritage without the need for heritage registration, and that they're doing a good job in preserving the heritage buildings without the heritage registration. We are hearing some support, at least in our meetings, from some of the other universities, but they can speak to council as during the registration process at the hearings, whether they're supportive or not. And council can legally decide to register some or all of the heritage buildings, whether they have the express support of the property owners or not. So under the Heritage Property Act does allow for regional council to register buildings at its discretion.
Yeah, I'm just relating back to a situation where a building was being ready to be what's wrong with me today? Demolished, and police and legal were able to step in and prevent that from happening. Just wondering where Dalhousie is taking this under, or trying to take this under their own wing. Are they putting themselves out there if someone wants to do some harm to the building? I guess is the best way to say
it. There was a recent third-party application through Mr. Chair for 1245 Edward Street. That was somewhat of a separate process than this one. That was an application made by neighboring property owners to register that building as a heritage building, and the Heritage Advisory Committee. This committee did pass a recommendation to register that building. So that building is protected because of that recommendation. Is protected for a period of 120 days. So Form A has been tagged the title of that property, and it will be considered by council in September 27th at its meeting in September 27th, and council could consider to register it or not to register it. It's entirely up to regional council based on the information that is made available to them.
Okay. Just wondering about, the danger of having a property not registered. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate that.
I also want to speak up. Lois, I see your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank Seamus for an excellent presentation. It was challenging reading through the report. You presented it with much clarity so that we could understand it better. I'm looking at attachment A and attachment B. I have some concerns with attachment B. Attachment A, those are all significant heritage buildings on university campuses. They're highly visible. There would be public outcry if anything happened to them. The community would certainly be vocal. I'm then looking at the recommendations which staff have brought forward for the Heritage Advisory Committee. And I'm wondering the wording there. I do believe there is room for much collaboration between the planning staff of the city and the planning people with the universities. I appreciate that Dalhousie wants to go forward on its own without any interference, but I don't see collaboration as interference. And I do think in the research and evaluation stages that there would be much room for the city to work with the university. universities, particularly Dalhousie, which has a school of architecture of its own, and the opportunity for student projects there working with the city. So I would propose, unless there are valid concerns that it would take things in another direction, I would propose for, and I'm dipping into the wording here, for consideration for registration as municipal heritage properties in accordance with the Heritage Property Act and bylaw H200, Heritage Property Bylaw, collaborating as appropriate with the specific university, which could be named or need not be named, could be left general, as collaborating as appropriate with the specific university. And I think that would open things up a little, and in the public perception would soften the university's approach to, this is our problem, this is our challenge, we do not want interference from the city, because that's how it will appear to many citizens. This softens it a bit and opens room for collaboration. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Lois. Oh. Thank you, Lois. Anyone else care to contribute? All right, so we do have a recommendation on the table. If I can find it, could I call on someone to propose?
So just for to make sure we keep organized, I think what would be best is first if there's someone who can read the initial recommendation, and then where there's a potential amendment to that recommendation, we can just entertain an amendment, just putting that formally as a motion, and then we can have a discussion on that amendment if you would like, Mr. Chair.
That sounds good. Is there anyone who'd like to volunteer to read it?
I will.
Lois,
Thank you.
please.
It is recommended that the Heritage Advisory Committee recommend that Halifax Regional Council initiate a process to research and evaluate potential heritage properties identified in Attachment A of the August 4, 2022 report for consideration for registration as municipal heritage properties in accordance with the Heritage Property Act and bylaw H200, the Heritage Property Bylaw.
Thank you, Lois. So do we want to amend that in any way?
Yep. Could I just get a seconder just to confirm that?
Okay.
I'll second it.
Thanks.
So do you want to keep this as it is, or do we want to play with the wording here? I wonder if it might be useful just incorporate a clause saying recommend that HRC in consultation with the appropriate institutions, or in consultation with the institutes where appropriate, initiate a process to research and evaluate. Just some sort of language, because I'd love to designate each and every single one of these properties, but they're all owned by Dal, and Dal does have legitimate concerns, so I think it's incredibly important to incorporate them. Lois, I saw your.
I thank you again. I would point out that the recommendation as it stands now does not mention heritage resources on university campuses. That's just a very general, it refers to Attachment A, but without linking it to heritage resources on university campuses, certainly any amendment that we add is going to look peculiar. Simon, I think perhaps we need some wordsmithing. And thank you again.
Is there there any possibility there? I mean, it does say attachment A, and council will realize that that is a list of the university buildings. It might be useful also to specify that in the language.
I will defer to staff on particular wording around that. My suggestion, though, would be that this meeting is itself a record, and staff will have that context available to share with council. Council will also have access to this meeting, and there are two councillors here who can speak to the tenor of the discussion in terms of any wordsmithing on its way towards council. This will also, I believe, as a joint report, be going to CPED. So there's also the possibility that, if there's discussion here that staff is able to take away and tailor, that's something that can also come to CPED as a potential change or recommendation.
Simon, if I could say something, Mr. Chair, I noticed towards the end, I noticed towards the end of your recommendation motion, it does say collaborating as appropriate with the specific university. So if this was a new motion with that added on, it would kind of bring attention that it's for the university specifically, and not just an open heritage, not invitation, but heritage clause. So I'm just wondering if that works.
Yeah, that's my understanding of the proposed amendment initially made by Lois York. So if there's a desire to amend the motion in that direction, we can put that on the floor and discuss it.
Yeah, I would be in support of it, amending it that way. Again, I would prefer to leave the language up to staff, perhaps. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff really don't have any issues with this language. It's our intent to collaborate with the universities as if we proceed with research and evaluation. We'll certainly have subsequent meetings with each university. So if HAC feels that this language clarifies things, staff have no real concerns.
I see, Mr. Chair, that Councillor Hensby has his hand up.
Councillor Hensby, please.
I was wondering, Seamus, could you tell me that has any of this report been run by either the regional center community council or the mayor's office? I know that the mayor's office usually has a meeting of the university presidents from time to time, and with the new academic year about to start, I don't know if he's planning to have a meeting soon with the presidents in regards to the upcoming orientation week mayhem that always happens and stuff. So I'm just kind of wondering if the mayor's office should get a briefing on this particular report, because the universities are a significant economic driver for us, and I can see why Dalhousie would be reluctant to kind of restrict some of their development potential for these properties they're consolidating, especially on Lamarche Street and elsewhere. I'm just curious, before this report goes down the pipe too far, is when we could do those courtesy calls, I guess, through those other avenues, because instead of just having staff trying to negotiate or talk to the universities one-on-one.
Thanks for the question through the chair. Staff did send out letters to the universities and did meet with Dalhousie on 2 occasions, AST and King's College staff. So there has been some engagement at the senior staff level with the universities. This report was, as you know, signed off by the CAO's office, and it's been tabled with the Heritage Advisory Committee. It goes to CPED. And what other meetings happen around I'll have to defer to Aaron, my colleague, principal planner.
Sure, thanks, Seamus, and through you, Mr. Chair. Councillor, there are already some meetings that are being scheduled currently through Councillor Mason due to the fact that the bulk of Dalhousie's campus in particular is within his district. I can say that myself and senior management will be attending that meeting with senior staff from Dalhousie, and there will be meetings taking place with the president and senior staff of King's College as well. So those meetings are beginning to happen, and I would say as well, in preparation for the CPED meeting, that the mayor's office and most of the rest of regional council will become aware of it as well.
Okay, sounds good. That sounds good, thanks.
You're muted.
I apologize. Okay, thank you, Councillor Hensby. Is there anyone else who'd care to contribute? Has any concerns or comments?
Yes, I would like to amend the motion on the floor by inserting the words "and attachment B" following the words identified in attachment A.
I think that they want to begin with attachment A, which are the institutional buildings, because those are seen as more at risk, more valuable properties, I suppose, in a historical sense. Is my understanding correct that we're going to be starting with attachment A?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The properties in attachment A are the priority list. So if this motion is passed, we begin researching and evaluating those properties ahead of the properties in attachment B,
which will follow after, I assume. So, David, does that massage your concern, or?
I would argue that the properties listed in attachment B are more at risk than the properties listed in attachment A.
I would
And,
absolutely agree with you.
to me, would be a higher priority.
So we've got a potential amendment. In order to discuss this amendment, I think what we would first have to do is just put the amendment on the floor, which would require a seconder, and then we can have a discussion on the merits of that potential amendment.
Thank you, Simon. Okay, so David Atchison has proposed an amendment. Does anyone second that, or just open it up for discussion? Have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Hensby, thank you very much. Okay, so do we want to change it to amendment A, attachment A and B? And then, I don't know. I agree that the houses are probably at far more risk, particularly with what we saw last month on Edward Street. But I think really beginning with attachment A makes sense for a lot of reasons. Care to argue for a change? Lois, please.
Thank you. I agree with David that those in attachment B are very much at risk. They're under the public radar until something happens. Those in attachment A are highly visible. They are public icons. And the chair is correct that, or I believe is correct, in that they need to be dealt with first. Attachment B, I'm not sure. I think we need to address it separately and perhaps move some of the emphasis onto the community at large. And I realize that may not be an appropriate direction, but I'm thinking these orphan structures, which are often in pretty dilapidated state anyway, community action can raise their visibility. Attachment A is enough to keep various staffs busy for the next 5 to 7 years at least. Attachment B should not be forgotten, but perhaps there is a role for the community at large to enter into the discussion, to raise the issues. This building should be included as a municipal heritage building. That's as far as I can take it myself right now, but I put it that attachment B is another matter.
Thank you, Lois.
Thank you.
So anyone else who has any thoughts? Councillor Stoddard, please go ahead.
Thank you. I was just wondering if Seamus could give his opinion on what has been said, both the difference between A and B, please.
Yeah, thank you for the question through Mr. Chair. I think many of you pointed out correctly that attachment A does contain the more obvious buildings of heritage value, the iconic buildings, mostly masonry, institutional heritage buildings, as opposed to the surrounding traditional residential buildings. And there's certainly rationale to prioritizing registration of these more significant heritage buildings in attachment A. Attachment A does include a few of the traditional residential buildings surrounding the traditional institutional buildings that are more iconic in terms of their architectural merit and age, especially. But they are mostly the heritage institutional buildings. So it's entirely based around architectural significance or heritage significance. And buildings in attachment B, some of them may be questionable in terms of whether they meet the evaluation criteria, the heritage building evaluation criteria. Many of them likely will, and many of them likely won't if they're evaluated by the Heritage Advisory Committee. So we figured that the buildings attachment B would be more a dialogue with the university through their campus master plan process in terms of what buildings can be redeveloped and what can be maintained, whereas attachment A are really kind of the constraints that we would like to see preserved, and the university can use sort of a conservation design approach and design around these buildings as opposed to tearing them down and redeveloping them. So attachment A really is the what staff believes will score very highly in terms of their heritage value, and attachment B contain the buildings that are more questionable in terms of their heritage value. Does that clarify things, Mr. Chair? You're on mute, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you. It's quite sensible. Any other thoughts?
I might just include, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, that I would say as due to this report and also the case with 1245 Edward Street, there is certainly increased focus on the buildings in the neighborhoods surrounding these campuses. We now have a pretty active residents association that is certainly keeping an eye on any buildings that might be at risk. The option always lies with this committee at one of the regular meetings to propose that staff expedite registration of any building, whether it's on the list or not. So I would just remind the committee that you know, you can always raise that recommendation, and that could be considered by regional council to have us expedite any registration at any time.
Good to know. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, so we do have a revised motion on the table.
Mr. Chair, sorry, I have just one comment. I apologize for interrupting. May I?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Just a thought that I I appreciate everybody's comments. I'm trying to absorb a lot of information in today's discussion. But with a marketing background, I'm just sort of thinking about the community discussion around some of these properties. And yes, there's going to be voices, there's going to be concerns. I think on a campus, there is easy access to thousands of people who would perhaps be motivated to sign a petition. And I just think that maybe we should think about those, if I can use the word protests or attention to certain matters, perhaps as being inflated versus the general public because of the nature of it being a campus with access to so many people. I hope this is a relevant piece. It's more from my marketing and communications background than my heritage background for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. One last call for comments. Okay, so we do have a revised motion on the table, which of course I didn't write down, but it is to include Appendix B, or perhaps even prioritize Appendix B in our motion.
It was my understanding of the motion as read by Member Atchison that the proposed motion, and it's in the chat, is that the motion be amended to read potential heritage properties, comma, identified in attachment A and B. So it doesn't at this point make any prioritization. It just includes both in the motion itself. In the text of the motion, there's possibility for further discussion and change as if desired, but as of this time, that's the drafting of what's on the floor.
Okay, so it doesn't commit us to reverse the entire order, but it does sort of keep Appendix B in sight, which I think is important. So based on that wording, we should take a vote, I suppose. All those in favor of the amendments?
Aye.
They say aye. Yeah. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, so the motion carries as it was amended, and I hope, Simon, we can get a proper text for that.
So I should confirm that's the amendment which is passed. That would then return to the main motion. There's the possibility for more amendments as desired, if desired, but I'll just pop that amended wording in the chat as well, just so we're up to speed on that.
Thank you. So again, I will ask: are there any comments, perhaps on the wider amendment? And perhaps, oh, sorry, somebody. Councillor Hensby, have your hand up? No, I'm sorry. I see some revised wording down in the chat there. So thank you, Simon. Are there any other thoughts on the amendment? Or sorry, on the motion? Perhaps while we think about it, I might ask a question of city staff. I may have missed this in the report. I've been sort of working on the assumption that these buildings on, I don't want to say the campus, but on campus area streets, are they actually owned by Dalhousie, or are they simply in the Dalhousie area and perhaps owned by private citizens?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that these properties are all owned by Dalhousie University, in attachment A and B.
Is there any discussion, further discussion on 9.1? Or are we prepared to vote on it? Lois has her hand up. Yes, please. Oh, I think you might be muted, Lois. I can't hear you.
I am. Apologies. Can staff confirm that the envelope around the motion will indicate that there is going to be appropriate collaboration with the university concerned? I'm concerned still that if that motion hangs there on its own and isn't interpreted or contextualized, that the general public and the universities will be concerned that there isn't a sense of collaboration. Can staff confirm?
Thanks for the question through the chair. There will be collaboration with universities during the process to research and evaluate our heritage resources. I believe it's expressed in the staff report that there will be future collaborations, and it's certainly our commitment to work with the universities as we research and bring forward their buildings for potential for consideration as heritage resources.
Through the chair, thank you, Seamus. I'm just looking here at page 8, the middle of the top paragraph. Staff, if invited, will participate in Dalhousie University's upcoming campus planning process this year. I'm assuming they are going to be invited, but again, that sense of collaboration and consultation.
Yeah, we do mention early in the report that we will request to be part of that campus planning process, and we do maintain also that if we are invited, we will be certainly collaborating in that process.
Well, and thank you again, but I guess that's all we can advocate for at this point, that we will be invited and we will go forward in a spirit of collaboration.
Lois, thank you. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but were you hoping for some more direct language in the actual recommendation we're passing here?
Yes.
Because Dalhousie is going to get a brief notice about this, and I would like them to know that we mentioned consultation. We want this. I think it's important to add just some language saying that. Just as I said earlier, the HAC recommend in consultation, recommend that HRC initiate a process of research and evaluation in consultation with the institutions where possible. Again, I might be misreading you, but
yes, I think that is a good suggestion, Mr. Chair. It may need a little more wordsmithing. I'm not clear, but I do think that the need for collaboration between the city and the university concerned is an important aspect, both for public perception and for the partners here, the city and the university. It's not adversarial, it's collaborative.
I have previous wording, which was suggested that the motion be amended to add collaborating as appropriate with the specific university. That can be suggested here again, or there can be additional wordsmithing. Whatever that amendment is. If you're able to read that out, I can capture that, and we can determine if that can receive a seconder, and then some discussion.
that sounds good. Lois, I hate to throw this at you, but would you care to perhaps reread the motion?
And I'm on the point of leaving because I can't stay any longer than 4:30. It is recommended that the Heritage Advisory Committee recommend that Regional Council initiate a process to research and evaluate potential heritage properties identified in amendments A and B of the August 4th, 2022 report, in collaboration as appropriate with the specific university for consideration for registration as municipal heritage properties in accordance with the Heritage Property Act and bylaw H200, the Heritage Property Bylaw. That might be a little better.
Yeah,
So I've captured that. I'll just post that in the chat shortly.
Thank you, both Mr. Chair and thank you, Simon.
We would need to have a seconder for this revised wording again. So
I second the revised wording, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
David, thank you. Okay, so all those in favor of working with this amended text, aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, great. Simon will get some decent language up there. Any other thoughts that come up on this proposal? It might be time to move this toward a vote then. If everyone's all right with that. And if I could perhaps again call on someone to read the revised motion, if we're able to get a text of it up.
Since I'm the one who's raised all this, I'll read it again.
Yeah. Okay.
It is recommended that the heritage, wait a second now, the full recommendation. It is recommended that the Heritage Advisory Committee recommend that Regional Council initiate a process to research and evaluate potential heritage properties identified in attachment A and B of the August 4th, 2022 report, collaborating as appropriate with the specific university for consideration for registration as municipal heritage properties in accordance with the Heritage Property Act and bylaw H200, the Heritage Property Bylaw.
Second the motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Lois. And David, you second this?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So all those in favor of the motion, can I hear an aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? There's silence, that's good. All right, so the motion is carried. So that wraps up item 9.1. Item 10.1 has already been dealt with. Are there any other issues that we need to deal with today? Anything from the floor? No, we all want to go home.
I just want to say thanks. Just let you know the heritage property hearings yesterday at council, both were approved. Tulip Street and the old home for college children. So they're both got approved yesterday.
Stairs House?
The trying to think which.
There are so many.
144 Pleasant Street in Dartmouth.
Yes. Yeah,
Mr. Chair.
that's it. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay. Oh, yes. Oh, that's good to know. Okay. Good news. Okay. So the date of our next meeting is September 28th. And there's no more business. I guess we will see everyone then. So I'll adjourn the meeting. And can I have someone actually formally propose that we adjourn?
I will.
Jennifer, thank you so much. Anyone want to second that?
Second.
All right, Councillor Stoddard, thank you so much. We're out of here. So I will see everyone next week or next month, and have a good September.
Thanks,
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Especially those of you who
Thank
have
you all.
Hello.
Bye, everyone.